Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The United Nations Secretary-General has called for urgent action on cutting greenhouse gas emissions, warning we are digging our own graves.
Enough of treating nature like a toilet.
Antonio Guterres was speaking at COP26 in Glasgow, where more than 120 world leaders are meeting to discuss climate change. Second in line to the throne, Prince Charles said time had literally run out, while naturalist and presenter David Attenborough said we need to make sure global warming is kept at 1.5 degrees Celsius. There were also musical performances and speeches from people living in Pacific and Amazonian countries where sea levels are rising fastest. The British Prime Minister said the question is whether leaders have the will to act.
If we don't get serious about climate change today, it will be too late for our children to do so tomorrow.
Arriving at the COP26 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron has said Australia's Prime Minister lied to him about the submarine deal.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know.
It's after Australia cancelled a $37 billion deal to build 12 submarines and instead negotiated a new defence pact with the US and the UK called AUKUS. Scott Morrison denies that he was dishonest. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has declared victory for his ruling Liberal Democratic Party. In a big win for Mr. Kishida, who only became Prime Minister a month ago, his party secured more than 233 lower house seats, enough to govern without its coalition partner. The LDP has dominated Japanese politics for decades, but was criticised for its handling of the pandemic. Mr. Kishida's predecessor, Yoshihide Suga, quit after just a year in office. Disneyland in Shanghai has shut down for at least 2 days after a weekend visitor tested positive for COVID-19 after returning home. The Chinese theme park will be closed on Monday and Tuesday, and all visitors and staff are being tested. Health workers in protective suits examined them as fireworks went off around the park's landmark castle. China hopes to reach 0 infections before it hosts the Winter Olympics, which begin in February. At least 29 civilians have been killed or wounded in North Yemen when ballistic missiles launched by the rebel Houthi movement hit a religious school and mosque. It comes after an explosion near the entrance to the international airport of Yemen's southern port city of Aden, which resulted in at least 6 deaths and around 20 injuries. An airport official said a small truck blew up at an outer gate at the airport. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has appealed to citizens to take up arms to block advancing rebel fighters. He made the call on Facebook after the rebels from the northern Tigray state reportedly seized control of more towns in neighbouring Amhara. The US has called for a ceasefire in a year-long conflict that has created a humanitarian crisis. At least 9 firefighters have died and 1 person has been seriously injured when a cave collapsed in Sao Paulo state in Brazil. The accident occurred when a group of firefighters were training in the Dos Bocos cave, about 360 kilometres from Sao Paulo. Part of the cave collapsed, leaving 10 people trapped. Police reported that 6 other people suffered minor injuries during the collapse, but they were not trapped in the cave. Crowds of travellers have landed in Thailand as the country reopened to tourists for quarantine-free travel. Under the new national programme, arriving passengers must be vaccinated, spend their first night in a pre-approved hotel and receive a negative COVID-19 test before they are able to travel freely in the country. The Southeast Asian nation approved visitors from more than 60 countries. Thailand's finance ministry predicts 180,000 foreign arrivals this year and 7 million next year. That's compared with some 40 million in 2019. And finally, archaeologists in Iraq have discovered a large-scale wine factory from the rule of the Assyrian kings 2,700 years ago, along with stunning monumental rock-carved royal reliefs. Giant stone basins cut into white rock that were used in commercial winemaking in the late 8th or early 7th century was one of the main finds, the first such discovery in Iraq. Also uncovered were 12 panels measuring 5 metres wide and 2 metres tall, showing deities, kings and sacred animals. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.